Good morning 4-H Club members. My name is Phaedra with 4-H Capital and I lead the Engineering and Tinkering Club at Harris Elementary. Today I'm going to show you a little experiment to learn about resonance and frequency. And the garbage truck is going by. And it's pretty simple. It doesn't require very many materials. The main thing you're going to need is scissors, tape of any sort, some stiff material like cardboard, or even if you have just like a box or a book that you don't mind taping something to, you're going to take it off when you're done. So it's very temporary. And some paper. I have a bunch of different colors just to make the video a little more interesting with all these colors, but if you don't have a lot of colors of paper, you can use plain white paper, you can color them yourself, or you can just watch it with white and it will be really cool no matter what. Another thing that you might find helpful is a ruler, just to help you measure and draw straight lines. If you don't have a ruler, that's okay. I'm going to show you a couple tricks for how to get these measurements pretty close to right. It does not have to be perfect. We're going to cut these into long strips. A piece of construction paper is 9 inches wide by 12 inches long, so if you don't have a ruler already, that will help you gauge how much to cut. We want these strips to be about 1 inch wide, and so if you're an elementary student, I measured my kids' fingers, and this middle knuckle on your first finger should be about 1 inch. So hopefully that will help you if you don't have a ruler. Otherwise, you can sit here and measure them out. I forgot a pencil, so I'm just gonna wing it. 1 inch goes to about here. I'm gonna cut. This one looks like it's gonna be the full length. I'll make that one my 12-inch long strip, and it does not have to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Just make a long strip. On second thought, maybe I'll make that a really double long strip so I can have a huge ring. You'll see in a minute. So now I have 24 inches of that. That's probably good. I'm going to do green next. And I'm going to do okay. So now I'm going to take all of these strips, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shape them into one long strip if they're broken up into two. And like I said, it really does not have to be perfect, it just has to be not falling apart. Cool, that's all of our strips. Now, I'm going to put them in order just so I can keep straight. And actually, I think I'm going to trim these little pieces of tape off because they're kind of bothering me, sticking to things. So now we're going to take our rings, and starting with the smallest one near the front, we're going to tape them into we're going to take our strips and we're going to turn them into rings. So sticky. And then you can either make a little loop of tape to stick it down, or if you're struggling with that, maybe you're younger and you just can't quite get that, you can also take a piece of tape and you could go through that way. So I'll show you the next one on that. Tape my ring into a ring, take a slightly longer piece of tape, and I'm going to put it across to help hold that ring down. So that's what you could do if you aren't getting the hang of that tiny little roll of tape. Alright, wow, those are really big. I don't know if those huge ones are going to work. I might cut them down. Basically, just play around with it until you get some rings that kind of stand up on their own. You don't want them to be flopping terribly far. Alright, cool. So now we've got some rings. And here's where the science part comes in. when you're doing a science experiment, you want to make sure that you're only changing one variable at a time. So in this case, we have 3 variables. We have the distance side to side that we're going to be moving our cardboard. We have the size of the rings, and we have the speed that we're going to be moving it side to side, or frequency. So that distance side to side is amplitude, and the speed is the frequency, and the size of the rings is just the size of the rings. So when you're trying to do this experiment, you might want to do something to help me keep the amplitude the same. So every time I'm just going to go as far as that tape. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but it's close, right? So, and then the other variable being the rings. Well, since we have them all stacked on this cardboard, that means that any speed that we're going, all of the rings are responding to the same frequency at the same time. And that means that that variable is being held constant, even though that's also a variable that we're going to test. So here we go. Take your hands somewhere on your cardboard, and you're just going to shake them back and forth. I'm going to start out really slow, actually. And this brown ring is really responding to that slow frequency. It's really just wobbling, whereas even the blue one's not. You'd think the blue one being bigger might be. I'm going to go a little bit faster. And let's see who starts to... I think that green one is responding, but the brown is kind of getting in the way. I think as we go a little bit faster, we start to really see the green one really be a bigger vibrator than the brown one. And the blue one's starting to join in now too. I'm going to increase my frequency. Oh, now that green one is really going. That's hit its resonance. Okay, I'm going to increase the frequency a bit more. I think I'm starting to see the yellow. It's hard to tell. I think I'm starting to see the yellow vibrate a little bit now too. The orange is staying remarkably still. So now I'm coming into a very high frequency, and you can see that the yellow ring is really vibrating hard, whereas even the larger rings are not, and the orange one is also not. I still haven't gotten, I'd have to go really fast. Oh my gosh, now the yellow one's really hitting its resonance, going everywhere, when the others are staying relatively still. And I still can't get the orange one to shake. That might be a good control one. Okay, so if you noticed that at the lower frequencies, these larger rings were hitting their resonance much sooner at the slower speeds. And then as you get higher and higher frequency, the smaller rings will be hitting their resonance, which is that time when they go from shaking to like, whoa, crazy shaking, right? That resonance is a special frequency that this size of ring, at that moment when it's going really hard, that moment of resonance is when that frequency is really aligning with the size and stiffness of this ring. This has implications for things like building an earthquake-proof building. You may want to research a bunch about the kind of trend in frequencies that the earthquakes in your area have, and then figure out what kind of size of building it will be, because some very tall buildings would do poorly in an earthquake of a low frequency, but they would actually do better than the smaller buildings in an earthquake with a really high frequency. So then if you're an engineer and you want to figure out how to make that useful, you could consider what ways would I structurally change my building to make it stronger. I'm going to use the correct colors. How could I make my green building here much stronger? What if I put, I'm not going to sit here and demonstrate all this. I want you to kind of take a chance to experiment on your own. But what if I put a cross piece all the way across like a bicycle spoke? What if I put a cross piece to hold that green building together? Would that change the frequency that it was hitting its resonance at? What if I put a bunch of them? What if I put some stabilizers here? Obviously buildings aren't ring shaped, right? What if I put some stabilizers, maybe make it more of a triangle, a wider base for a stronger foundation, or even just keeping some bars here? Would that change the frequency? So if you want to take this lesson and take it a little step further, you could play around with some of those things just with more of your construction paper. And just make it, just play around with how you would stabilize those buildings and see if that changes how it responds to certain frequencies. If you want to do it in a very scientific way, you could make all your rings the exact same size and give them, so if I had all 5 of these as this green ring size, and on one of them I did it like spokes of a bicycle, and on the other I put two bracing walls on either side of it, and on another one I braced it in some other way. Maybe you could see what would happen. Maybe you do it as a double layer thick, maybe that makes a difference, or triple layer thick. So play around with it and just see. And so remember that you're in doing science, you want to keep that variable the same. So if you're messing around with all the different ways to stabilize your ring, you should keep using a same size ring throughout your whole thing. So we did this just to observe, and then if you want to actually play around with it, find yourself a nice frequency that you like how it's hitting resonance on your ring, and then find some ways to stabilize that size of ring and make a bunch more of that size of ring and keep doing it. Hope that makes sense. And I hope that helps you understand a little bit about how resonance is like a very specific frequency that a material will have that helps it vibrate more extraordinarily. Resonance also comes up in things like music and sound waves and stuff like that. So it's a pretty cool topic, and there's more to be learned from it. So search resonance if you want to learn about how to do some cool experiments with that. Have a great day. I hope you learned something. I hope you will try this out and play around with it on your own time. And if you come up with any really cool reinforcing ways to do this, I'd love to see that in a comment or something. Yeah, share it with your friends, share it with your family. Science is not really very cool if you keep it to yourself. It's really cool if you share it. So have a great day, and I'll see you next time.